Have you ever been so down and out that all you had left was an old iron skillet? That was Evelyn Hart. Her dead husband's lies cost her everything, leaving her with nothing but ghosts and debts. This is the story of how a broken woman, armed with just that skillet, cooked up a second chance that nobody saw coming. It's a reminder that sometimes your greatest strength is the one thing they couldn't take from you. If you believe in fighting back, hit that like button. Now let's get into it. The Texas sun showed no pity that morning. 34-year-old Evelyn Hart was face down in the dirt, a world away from the life she knew. Just 3 months ago, her husband Thomas died a respected man. But his death uncovered a mountain of secrets. The banker's voice was slick as oil when he told her the house was gone. Strangers came and put tags on everything she owned, from her grandmother's dining table to the wedding dress she had saved. They took it all. Even Thomas's own sister just pressed 3 copper pennies into Evelyn's hand, mumbling something about how scandal was a sickness she couldn't afford to catch. Evelyn understood she was officially an outcast. The only thing she saved was that old iron skillet, because she was already gone when they came for the last of her things. She had started walking because standing still meant feeling the full weight of her ruin. One town after another shut her out. A boarding house owner demanded cash she did not have. A storekeeper worried about what folks might say about a widow in debt. In the third town, the sheriff himself ran her off, his eyes full of suspicion. He told her to keep moving, and that is what she did. This fourth town seemed no different. No work, no kindness, just more closed doors. She pushed herself up, the taste of dust and failure in her mouth. When was the last time she ate? Yesterday, maybe. The heavy skillet bumped against her leg. It was a piece of her history, seasoned by generations of Hart women. Her own mother used to say that cooking was not just about food. It was love you could see. It was how you cared for people when words failed. The skillet had survived hardship before. Evelyn figured maybe she could too. With 3 pennies and 1 skillet, she started walking again. The road shimmered in the heat and the sun was relentless. Her water had been gone since the day before. Her mind started playing tricks on her, showing her shady spots that were not there. But stopping was not an option. Walking kept the sorrow at bay. Just as she felt she could not go on, she saw it. A tiny trail of smoke rising against the sky. It was a long shot, but it was something. The smoke led her to a hollow where an old man sat by a fire. He looked to be 70 or so, with skin like worn leather. He was careful, she could see that, but his eyes were not mean. He looked at her dusty, broken frame and spoke in a voice like gravel. "Ma'am," he said, "you look like you're about 2 steps from giving up the ghost." Before she could answer, he tossed her his canteen. "Drink slow," he warned her. The water was the best thing that she had ever tasted. He told her to sit, and without a word shared his jerky and bread. The simple food felt like a feast. He watched her eat, just sipping his coffee. When she finished, he finally asked for her name. "Evelyn Hart," she said. He nodded. "Jonah Reed." He looked her right in the eye. "So by Evelyn Hart, what's your story? How does a woman like you end up in the middle of nowhere with just a skillet and a whole world of trouble in her eyes?" "My husband left this world," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He also left behind debts that took everything from me. I've been looking for work, but—" She motioned to her worn-out appearance. "Nobody wants to hire a woman who's hit rock bottom." He'd been a gambler, and the anger she felt over his secrets still burned. Jonah just nodded, like he already knew. "So where are you headed?" he asked. "Anywhere that will have me," she replied, meeting his gaze. "I can cook, clean, and work hard. All I need is a chance." "You can really cook?" he asked, his tone sharpening. "Yes, sir. I learned from my mother, and she from hers. I can make a feast from scraps." Jonah pointed to the campfire with a skillet. "Prove it." Evelyn knew this was a test she could not afford to fail. She took the few things he had, some dried beans, salt pork, a withered onion, and a few spices. With practiced hands, she rendered the fat, sautéed the onion and garlic, and let the smells fill the air. She added the beans and water, tending to the skillet over the fire. 40 minutes later, she handed Jonah Reed a plate of beans. It was a simple dish, but it tasted of comfort and care. He ate every last bite without a word. When he was done, he looked at her with his sharp old eyes. You have a real gift, Mrs. Hart. It's a shame to see it go to waste out here. He offered her some coffee, and she gladly took it. Know anything about ranching? Not much, she admitted, but I'm a quick study. I don't need a ranch hand. I need a cook, he said. There's a place called Stonefield Ranch, run by a man named Lucas Hale. A fire took his wife years ago, and it nearly killed him, too. The scars made him hard. Some even say mean. Sounds like a hard place to work, Evelyn said. Jonah almost smiled. He goes through cooks faster than firewood. The last one said she'd rather starve than work for that man. And you reckon he would hire me? Evelyn asked, not hiding her doubt. I reckon your desperation is your greatest strength, Jonah told her plainly. Those other cooks could afford to quit. You can't. You'll put up with his temper because you have to fight for this job. The honesty of his words hit her hard. Does he pay well? More than fair, Jonah confirmed. With room and board, you could clear your husband's debts in a year and start fresh. A whole year cooking for a scarred, difficult man sounded like a living nightmare, but it also sounded like her only hope. How do I get there? Jonah gave her clear directions to the ranch. Go straight to Hale himself. Don't bother with his men. He respects folks who are direct. And if he says no, she asked. Then you've walked 15 miles for nothing, Jonah shrugged. But you were walking anyway. Better to walk towards something than away from it. Evelyn stood and did her best to straighten her address. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Don't thank me, he said, handing her a bundle with food for the journey. And Mrs. Hart, when you see Lucas Hale, don't you dare apologize for who you are. Just show him what you can do. That man has seen enough weakness. He'll respect your strength. She walked northeast under the hot sun, following his directions. Soon, a sturdy fence line appeared, and a weathered sign read Stonefield Ranch. This was the place that could save her or break her. 2 hours later, she saw the main house. It was a fortress of gray stone, 3 stories tall, surrounded by barns and corrals. This wasn't just a ranch, it was a kingdom. As she walked toward the house, ranch hands stopped to stare. A young man tried to stop her. Ma'am, can I help you? I'm here to see Mr. Hale, she said, her voice steady. He pointed to a man on the porch, a man whose face was a map of old burns. His eyes were as hard as stone. This was Lucas Hale. Evelyn walked right up to him. Mr. Hale, I heard you need a cook. My name is Evelyn Hart, and I'm the best you'll ever find. Evelyn marched right up to that massive ranch house door, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knocked good and loud. The man who answered was a solid wall of a person, probably 6'2", his face a roadmap of old burn scars that pulled his mouth into a permanent scowl. This had to be the infamous Lucas Hale. I am not buying whatever it is you are selling, he growled. Evelyn stood her ground. I am not selling a thing. I am here for the cook's job. He grunted, his stormy eyes narrowed. There is no job. You have run off 3 cooks in the last year, she shot back. That means there is a job. A flicker of something, maybe surprise, crossed his scarred face. And what makes you think you are qualified, he sneered. Because I can cook for 20 men, make supplies last, and I do not run when things get tough. She held his hard gaze. Look, Mr. Hale, I need this job, but you need a cook who will actually stick around. My desperation means I am not going anywhere. He looked her up and down, taking in her worn-out boots and the cast-iron skillet strapped to her pack. Desperate people cause trouble. Desperate people are grateful, she corrected him. After a long, heavy silence, he finally stepped aside. You get 1 week. You cook for 23 men. You mess up, you are gone. Understood, Evelyn said, her back straight as a fence post. It was not a job offer. It was a dare. When do I start? Right now. Dinner is in 3 hours, he said, pointing down a long hallway. The work will speak for itself, Mrs. Hart. Do not waste my time with excuses. He had already turned away, dismissing her. She found a kitchen bigger than any she had ever seen, stocked to the rafters. It was intimidating, but it was a chance. She set down her skillet, rolled up her sleeves, and got to work. There was plenty of good beef, beans, and flour. It was more than enough to prove what she could do. She knew these ranch hands would be a tough crowd. Men who had seen 3 other cooks fail. They would be looking for any reason to send her packing. She had to be perfect. With a quiet confidence, she found her rhythm. 2 hours later, the entire ranch house was filled with the warm, rich smell of beef stew, fresh baking biscuits, and sweet apples. It was a scent of home, and it drew the men to the kitchen doorway one by one. They just stood there watching her with a mix of doubt and raw hunger on their faces. One of the older men, probably the foreman, finally spoke up. "Mr. Hale says dinner is at 6 o'clock. "It will be ready," she replied, not looking up from her work. "Set the table for 23. To her surprise, they did just as she asked. At 6 o'clock sharp, the dining hall filled with hungry men. Lucas Hale sat at the head of the main table, his scarred face impossible to read. The room was quiet as they all took their first bites. Then, a young cowboy's eyes went wide. "Ma'am," he said, his voice full of awe, "this is incredible." Soon the whole room was buzzing with praise as the men devoured every last scrap of food. Through it all, Lucas Hale ate in silence, his expression giving nothing away. When the meal was over, the foreman, a man she learned was named Samuel Briggs, stopped by her. "That was the best meal we have had in 6 months, Mrs. Hart. Thank you." Later, as Evelyn was elbow-deep in wash water, Hale appeared in the doorway. "The men liked the food," he stated flatly. "They were hungry," she replied simply. He stepped into the room. "That was good cooking. Better than good. But one meal does not make a week. Breakfast is at 5:30 in the morning. They need food that will stick with them. Can you do that?" "Yes," she said. "We will see," he answered. And then he was gone. He just said, "Your room is ready. Last door on the right down the back hall. If you need something, tell Briggs." And then he was gone. Evelyn got the last of the dishes clean, dried her hands on her apron, and went to find the room. It was small with just a bed and a dresser, but it was clean, and more importantly, it was all hers. The first private space she had had in 3 long months. She sat on the bed and felt a little victory. She'd done it. She had a tree, a roof over her head, and 7 days to prove to Lucas Hale she was worth keeping. She woke at 4:30 in the morning, ready to face the day. By 5, the old house was filled with the smell of coffee, crisp bacon, and fresh biscuits she'd prepared the night before. The scent worked like a charm, pulling the sleepy ranch hands toward the kitchen. Lucas Hale walked in right on time, sat down, and ate without a single word. That set the tone for the week. Evelyn cooked, the men ate, and Lucas watched her with an unreadable expression. She had no idea if she was meeting his expectations, but the men were getting their energy back and the grumbling about the food had stopped cold. One afternoon, she heard 2 fellas talking outside. "I reckon Hale's gonna keep her. He'd be a fool not to. You taste them biscuits? My own mama couldn't make 'em that light, and she used twice the butter." That was all the praise she needed. On the 5th day, Lucas finally spoke to her again. "The men are working harder. Briggs says they're getting more done, Vicky." He stood in the doorway, a tall shadow against the morning light. "Good food makes for good morale. My mother used to say that." He paused, and his hard expression softened just a bit. "You're doing a good job, Ms. Hart, but the week isn't over yet." He left her with her bread dough and a flicker of hope that she was building something that might just last. When the week ended, Lucas found her in the kitchen after Sunday dinner. "Pack your things tonight," he said, and her heart fell to the floor. After all that work, he was sending her away. "Mr. Hale, if I did something," she started, but he cut her off. "You're moving to the main room upstairs. The one you're in now is too small for winter. You'll need better quarters if you're staying on permanent." Staying on permanent. The words were the sweetest she'd ever heard. "You earned it," Charlie said, looking her straight in the eye. "Whatever you're running from, it doesn't matter here. The past is dead. What matters is what you do now." A month passed quicker than a blink. Evelyn's new room was 3 times bigger and caught the morning sun. The iron skillet she'd arrived with sat on her dresser like a trophy. The ranch hands treated her with a kind of gentle respect. And the foreman, Samuel Briggs, even started asking her opinion on supply orders. She had become more than just a cook. Lucas Hale was still a man of few words. He ate every meal she made but never offered a compliment after that first week. Still, she'd see little things. The way he started to move when she burned her hand, or how he silently carried a 50-pound sack of flour for her one morning. He was watching her, she knew, waiting to see if she was the real deal. 6 weeks in, a fight broke out between 2 hands, Jack and Tom, who were hollering at each other about a card game. Their angry voices echoed from the kitchen while Evelyn was in the cellar counting supplies. She hurried up the stairs to find them nearly at each other's throats, red-faced and ready to swing. "I'm telling you, you cheated," Tom yelled, his voice ragged with anger. "Nobody's that lucky." "You calling me a liar?" Jack shoved Tom hard. Evelyn stepped right between them before a punch could fly. "Not in my kitchen, boys. Y'all take that foolishness outside." Just then, the doorway filled with Lucas Hale. The whole room went cold. Without raising his voice, he looked at the two ranch hands, and they wilted. "Mr. Hale, Jack stammered. "I don't care," Lucas said, his voice flat as a skillet. "Settle it on your own time. Tom, you're on fence duty. Jack, you've got the stables. Now." They scrambled out of there like their heels were on fire. Lucas then turned to Evelyn, his hard face softening just a bit. "You all right, ma'am?" She nodded. "I'm fine." "They're just full of bluster." "That can still get you hurt," he said, glancing around her kitchen. "Shouldn't have gotten in the middle of it." "Well, nobody's brawling where I cook," a flicker of approval showed in his eyes. "So it's your kitchen now?" "You gave me the job. I'm claiming the territory," she said, turning back to her onions. "Besides, men fixing for a real fight don't waste time hollering first." "That's a sharp observation." "I was married," she said simply. "You learn the difference between a real storm and just loud thunder." Lucas was quiet for a spell. "Your husband, the one who left you in debt, did he hit you?" The question was blunt. Evelyn thought about lying, but didn't. "No, he was just careless with money and with the truth." "Yeah," Lucas said, his voice low. "Sometimes that's worse." That little showdown had an interesting effect. The story got around that Mrs. Hart didn't back down and that the boss had stood behind her. Her kitchen became neutral ground. The men started treating her with a new kind of respect. A few days later, Samuel Briggs told her, "You're tougher than you look. Mr. Hale notices that, you know. He don't say much, but he sees everything." Evelyn had a feeling he was right. She'd seen how he backed her play with Jack and Tom. She wondered what it meant that the ranch owner was watching her so close. She told herself it was just good business, keeping the ranch running smooth. But then she started seeing things too. Little kindnesses he did when he thought no one was looking. Slipping extra pay to a young hand with a sick mother. Fixing a wagon wheel himself for 2 hours to save another man the trouble. He was a hard man, sure, but not a cruel one. He just built his walls so high he might have forgotten how to get over them himself. The seasons turned and the work got harder as winter crept in. Evelyn didn't mind. It kept her focused. Her savings in the tin box under her bed grew slow and steady. One bitter November evening, Lucas showed up at the kitchen door holding his accounts ledger. "Mrs. Hart," he said, "I've been reviewing the expenses. You're spending 30% less on food than anyone before you, and the meals are better." "I learned how to make a dollar stretch," she replied. He nodded, opening the book. "Well, that kind of skill deserves rewarding. I'm increasing your wages by 15%, effective immediately." Evelyn stared at him. That much sooner. That meant she could pay off her late husband's debts and be free in just 5 months. "Thank you," she said, her voice a little thick. "That's very generous." "It's fair," he said, closing the book. "I also want you to start taking Sunday afternoons for yourself. You've worked straight through since you got here." His thoughtfulness caught her off guard. "Why are you being so kind to me, Mr. Hale?" He seemed surprised by the question. "It's practical. Good people who work hard shouldn't be taken for granted." "I might have forgotten that for a spell." "Was it because of your wife?" His face shut down, cold as a blue norther. "That is not a topic for discussion." "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have," she said quickly. "No, you shouldn't have," he said, but his voice wasn't angry, just final. "Hart, you were not far off the mark. That is more than I can say for most folks." After he said that, things between them changed. It was more than just a boss and his cook. Lucas began spending time in the kitchen, not getting in the way, but just being there. He would sit at a small corner table with his paperwork while she cooked. The quiet between them felt comfortable, not awkward. He started asking for her thoughts on ranch business. She would tell him the truth, and he would listen hard, sometimes taking her advice. She once mentioned that Tom Porter seemed worn out. The very next day, Lucas had the doctor check on him. Turned out the young man had a bad chest infection. A couple of days' rest put him right. That is when Lucas told her, "You pay attention to things, the real things." Evelyn replied, "So do you. You already suspected something was wrong with Tom." "How did you know that?" he asked. "Because you asked me if I noticed anything concerning. You do not ask questions you do not already have an answer for." He actually smiled then, a genuine smile that changed his whole face. "You are starting to figure me out," she said. "You are not as tough as you let on." "Be careful, Mrs. Hart," he warned. "That sounds a lot like friendship. And would that be so awful?" The smile vanished. "I do not know," he said. "It has been a long time since I had a friend." "Me too," Evelyn said softly. "I reckon we are both overdue." December brought the first heavy snow, making Stonefield Ranch look like a picture postcard. The cold made the men hungry, so she cooked richer, heartier meals to keep them warm. Christmas was coming and the men were getting antsy to see their families. Evelyn had no family and nowhere to go, but she did not mind. The ranch was starting to feel like home. A few weeks before Christmas, while she was baking cookies, Lucas walked in with a young boy. The child looked to be no more than 12, skinny and small for his age, with sad eyes. "This is Ethan Brooks," Lucas said, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. "He will be helping out around here. Make sure he eats well." "Of course," Evelyn said, kneeling to the boy's level. "You like cookies, Ethan?" The boy gave a small nod. "Good," she said. "The first batch is for you." "Really?" he whispered. "Really," she confirmed. "Mr. Hale, why don't you show Ethan his bunk while I get these out of the oven?" Lucas gave her a look of understanding and approval. "Good idea. Come on, son." After they left, Samuel Briggs came in, drawn by the smell. "The boss found that boy on the road yesterday. His folks passed last month. No other kin. The boy is only 12 years old. Lucas could not just leave him out there to freeze. So he gave him a job. It is how he helps people without making it seem like charity." Evelyn plated the fresh cookies. "He does that a lot, does he not?" "More than you know," Briggs said. "There is a reason the men are loyal to him. He takes care of his own." He paused. "And you are one of his own now, Mrs. Hart, just so you know." She had started to realize that. She was not just an employee anymore. She was part of the strange family Lucas Hale had built from cast-offs and second chances. Ethan settled in, a quiet boy who worked hard. Evelyn made sure he ate, and the men took him under their wing. Lucas watched over them all with his stormy eyes, seeing everything. 2 days before Christmas, a woman showed up in a fancy carriage. She wore expensive furs and looked like she owned the world. Samuel came into the kitchen looking worried. "There is a visitor for the boss. A lady named Marjorie Collins. Says she is an old family friend." Samuel added, "She asked if Lucas still had that widow woman cooking for him, and she did not sound friendly." Evelyn felt a warning prickle her skin. "Where is she?" "In the office with the boss." "Just be careful, Mrs. Hart. She looks like trouble." An hour later, Marjorie Collins walked into the kitchen. She looked Evelyn up and down with cold eyes. "So, you are the famous Mrs. Hart." Her voice was sickly sweet. "Lucas speaks so highly of your cooking." "That is kind of him," Evelyn said, still kneading her bread dough. "I am Marjorie Collins," she continued. "My bank holds the loans on this ranch. We are old family friends. I just like to check on his investments." "The ranch is doing fine," Evelyn said. "Oh, I am not worried about the ranch," Marjorie purred, stepping closer. "I am worried about other things. You are a widow, right? Left with nothing after your husband's gambling debts came to light." "My husband's mistakes were his own," Evelyn said flatly. "They do not define me. Some might say you took advantage of Lucas's kindness, a desperate widow cozying up to a single man. It does not look right." And there it was. Marjorie saw her as a rival. The idea was almost funny. "I am his cook, Mrs. Collins. That is all. If you are worried about how things look, you should take it up with Mr. Hale." Marjorie gave a cold, victorious smile. "Oh, I will, dear. I am staying for Christmas. We will be seeing a lot of each other." She swept out, leaving the smell of expensive perfume and cheap spite. Evelyn punched the bread dough harder than she needed to. This woman was a different kind of trouble. Later that night, Lucas found her in the kitchen. "Marjorie spoke to you." "She did," Evelyn answered, "and she said things she had no business saying." "I figured as much." Evelyn voiced her worries about appearances, about what folks might say about an unmarried boss and his widowed cook. A muscle jumped in Lucas's jaw. Marjorie likes to stir up trouble. It's a gift she has. Then why is she coming for Christmas? She invited herself, he said flatly. Don't you pay her any mind, Mrs. Hart. Her opinion means nothing here. It might mean something to other folks in town, Evelyn countered. A woman's reputation is a fragile thing. Your position here is secure, he said, his voice full of a sudden, fierce protection. You work for me, and anyone who says otherwise can answer to me. His intensity warmed a part of her that had been cold for a long time. His eyes met hers, steady and clear. You've earned your place with honest work. The rest is just noise. Evelyn had learned that loud accusations could drown out the truth, and a woman's good name was easier to tear down than a barn. She had survived so much already, but she knew this new fight would take more than just survival. Come Christmas morning, a woman named Marjorie Collins had made the ranch her personal kingdom for 3 full days. She was a guest of Lucas's, and she spent her time complaining and making sharp little comments aimed right at Evelyn. The ranch hands stayed clear of her, but Evelyn knew she couldn't. This wasn't a fight with fists. It was a war of whispers, and Evelyn was fixing to win it. She headed to the kitchen before dawn, ready to cook a feast and protect the new life she had worked so hard to build. For days, Evelyn kept her head down and her cooking perfect, ignoring the sideways glances from another woman named Marjorie. The woman's constant, sharp remarks were starting to wear on her. One afternoon, while rolling out pie crust, she overheard their voices from the hallway. A man in your position, Lucas, Marjorie was saying with fake concern, should not be employing a woman with such a questionable background. Lucas's voice was cold as a Texas winter night. Her husband died and left her in debt. That is a misfortune, not a scandal. But people will talk, Marjorie insisted. A young widow living right here in your house. She lives in the employee quarters and does the job I hired her for. If people want to make something aching ugly out of honest work, that is their failing, not hers. I am only thinking of your reputation. My reputation, he said, his voice dropping low, survived a fire that killed my wife and left me looking like this. The ranch isn't a monster. I think it can handle having a good cook, she heard Lucas say. The bitterness in his voice was plain. He never spoke about the fire that had scarred him, but the pain was there. Marjorie's voice softened. Lucas, it has been 5 years. It's time to let someone help you move on. And I suppose that someone is you, he asked, his voice turning to ice. Our families have always hoped. Their hopes are not my problem, he stated coldly. I think it is time for you to go back to town, Marjorie. You are sending me away? She asked, shocked. You have never been happy here, he replied, because you lock yourself away in this stone prison with your broken people. This is my home, he said firmly, and these are my people. There is nothing broken about us that life did not break, and that happens to everyone. You got feelings for that widow, don't you, Lucas? Marjorie's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. The silence stretched out until Evelyn could hear her own heart thumping in the kitchen. What I feel is my business, Lucas said flatly. Mrs. Hart has earned my protection, and that's that. A door slammed, and Marjorie was gone. A while later, Lucas came into the kitchen looking worn out. She's gone. I'm sorry you heard that. He poured a cup of coffee. I was trying to be polite, but some things just ain't worth the trouble. She thinks you fancy me, Evelyn said, crimping the pie crust. She just assumes everyone's got a scheme, Lucas replied, watching her hands work. For the record, I stood up for you because you deserved it. Simple as that. A quiet understanding passed between them. It wasn't a scheme, whatever was growing between them. It was just real. You see the good in people, he said. You look after Ethan. You try to help folks. That ain't strategy, Evelyn. That's character. The words settled warm in her chest. It had been a long, long time since someone had truly seen her for who she was. Same could be said about you, she answered softly. Have you ever felt like life's dealt you a bad hand, only to find a glimmer of hope in the most unlikely place? That was Lucas and Evelyn. He was a rancher, scarred inside and out by a tragedy he couldn't outrun. She was a woman with her own secrets, just looking for a fresh start. They were two broken souls trying to build something good, and folks in town were already talking. This is the story of how they decided to stop hiding and start living. If you believe in second chances, you'll want to hear this. After Evelyn came to Stonefield Ranch, Christmas felt different. It felt like home. She cooked up a feast that had the ranch hands praising her to the high heavens. Even the quiet orphan boy, Ethan, cracked a smile. Lucas watched it all, a quiet warmth spreading through him for the first time in a long, long while. Later, as they cleaned up, Lucas told her, "You gave them more than just a meal. You gave them a taste of family." Evelyn just smiled. "That's what my mama always said food was for." "She sounds like a good woman," he said softly. "She would have liked you," Evelyn replied, gently bumping his shoulder. "She always said the most interesting people were the ones life had tested." Lucas managed a small smile. "Well, I'm definitely not boring." They settled in the kitchen with coffee, the house quiet around them. After a bit, Evelyn took a deep breath. "Can I ask you about the fire?" His face closed up tight. "I don't talk about that." "I know," she said gently. "But carrying it alone has eaten you alive. I know what it's like to let pain become a prison." He finally broke, the words torn from him. "I couldn't save her. My wife, Carolyn." He told her how the barn went up in flames, how he got the horses out, but she ran back in for the last one. "The roof came down. I tried to get to her, but the fire, it threw me back. She died because I wasn't strong enough, wasn't fast enough." "Oh, Lucas," Evelyn whispered, reaching across the table and covering his scarred hand with hers. He flinched but didn't pull away. "I'm not going to tell you it wasn't your fault," she said, her voice steady. "I'm going to tell you that Caroline wouldn't want you living the rest of your life frozen in that moment. She would want the man she loved to truly live, not just get by." She squeezed his hand. "You couldn't save her, but you saved Ethan from freezing on some roadside. You saved me when you gave me a mom. That's got to count for something." He was quiet for a long time, just looking at their hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you for seeing past the scars." In that quiet moment, something shifted. The line between boss and cook blurred into something much more complicated. That night, Evelyn knew she was in trouble. She cared for Lucas Hale, the real man beneath the hurt and the silence. He was kind and strong, and when he looked at her, she felt seen. Leaving would be the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But the thought of leaving this place, these people, it felt like leaving home. She couldn't do it. It was foolish and dangerous, but it was also true. She knew she had to stay. January's cold was bitter, but the kitchen was always warm, and it became the heart of the ranch. Lucas spent more time there than anywhere else, working at the table while she cooked. An easy rhythm grew between them, full of unspoken words and glances that lasted a second too long. Then one afternoon, the smell of smoke cut through the air. Not from her stove. It was coming from down the hall. "Fire!" she yelled, her voice clear and strong. "Everybody out now!" Folks came running from all directions. Samuel appeared right beside her. "Where at?" "Storage room," as she replied. "Get everybody out." "You seen Lucas?" "In his office." She ran, yelling his name. He met her in the hall, already on the move. "Storage room," she said. "Ethan's in there." All the color drained from Lucas's face. He just ran toward the smoke. The hallway was getting thick with it. Lucas found the door locked from inside. He hammered on it, shouting for Ethan, but heard nothing. He threw his shoulder against it 3 times before the frame busted. A black wall of smoke poured out. Lucas charged right into it without a second thought. Evelyn heard him call the boy's name, followed by a terrible cough. Her own mind was screaming at her to get out, but she couldn't leave them boys in there. She pulled her apron over her face and dove in right behind him. The heat was a monster. She dropped low to the floor, crawling through the blinding smoke and calling for Lucas. His choked voice came from the left. "I've got him, but we're trapped." She found them by feel. A fall on a shelf blocked their way out, and the boy, Ethan, was out cold. "This way," she yelled, tugging Lucas's arm. She remembered a window on the far wall. It was their only shot. She pulled them through the awful heat until her hands hit the wall, but the window was too high. Just as she lost hope, Lucas shoved Ethan into her arms. "Hold on to him." He grabbed a metal bar from the wreckage and shattered the glass. Cool air rushed in, which was a godsend, but it also fed the fire behind them. Give him here, Lucas ordered. I'll pass him out, then get you. She handed Ethan over. As Lucas turned back for her, a huge explosion threw them both to the floor. Lucas twisted midair to take the brunt of the fall, shielding her with his body. Can you stand? He rasped. Then climb, now. He gave her a boost and she scrambled out the window into a pair of waiting arms. She looked back just in time to see Lucas haul himself through as the roof caved in. Samuel and the others dragged him clear of the blaze. Everyone was out. Everyone was safe. Evelyn knelt in the snow, coughing until her lungs burned, her seared hands screaming in pain. She watched the men form a bucket line, working hard to save the rest of the house from the fire. Lucas, covered in soot and blood, item dan was already directing the men. The ranch doctor arrived and saw to Ethan first, saying the boy would be fine with some rest. Then he bandaged Evelyn's hands. He had to practically order Lucas to sit still. You aiming to make a habit of running into fires, the doctor grumbled. Only when my people are inside, Lucas replied, his eyes finding Evelyn's. By midnight, the fire was out. The storage room was a total loss, but the main house was saved. Ethan woke up scared he had started the fire. Not your fault, son, Lucas told him gently. It was likely old wiring. You're safe, and that's all that matters. Long after everyone else was asleep, Evelyn had sat in the quiet kitchen, the whole awful day playing over in her head. Can't sleep either, Lucas said from the doorway. He looked worn out but had cleaned up as he sat across from her. How are the hands? He asked. They'll heal, she answered. You saved us today, he said quietly, taking one of her bandaged hands in his. You and Ethan would be dead if not for you knowing about that window. You'd have found another way, she insisted. Maybe, he said, but you didn't hesitate. You ran into that fire for us. A person with that kind of grit is mighty rare. Ethan is a child, my responsibility. But you had every reason to get out of there and save yourself. You chose to stay. Of course I stayed. Evelyn looked him square in the eye. Where else was I going to go? You were both in there. I could not just leave you. The air between them got thick with all the things they had been avoiding for months. Lucas's thumb drew little circles on her wrist. Evelyn, her name sounded different coming from him, quiet and full of care. I have to tell you something, and you can tell me to shut my mouth. But after today, after almost losing you, I cannot keep pretending. Her heart was beating like a drum against her ribs. Pretending what? That you are just my cook. That I have not been falling for you since the day you showed up with nothing but a skillet and enough grit to demand a chance. I care about you more than I should. You make this ranch feel like home again. You make me want to be better than the bitter, broken man I have been. If you do not feel the same, I will never bring it up again. But she kissed him. It was not planned, just a sudden need to show him what words could not say. Her bandaged hands held his scarred face, and she pressed her lips to his. He froze for a second, then kissed her back with a fierce tenderness that made her whole body ache. His hands pulled her closer. When they finally broke apart, breathing hard, his eyes searched hers. So I am guessing you feel the same. Evelyn laughed, a shaky, genuine sound. You are not that dense, Lucas Hale. I just wanted to be sure. He gave her one of his rare, real smiles. Because I am about to do something crazy, and I want to make sure you are on board. What is that? I am going to ask you to marry me, not today, but soon. Because life is too short to waste time. And I want you, Evelyn Hart. I want to build a life with you. So when I asked, what are you going to say? She looked at this man who had given her a chance when she had nothing. This man who ran into a fire without a second thought. This man who was asking her to be his partner in everything. I'm going to say yes, she told him. When you ask, the answer is yes. His smile grew into pure joy. Good. That is good. They sat there in the kitchen, holding hands. But the next morning was hard. Evelyn woke up and her hands were so swollen she could barely move her fingers. The doctor had warned her the second day was always worse. She could not cook like this. She felt like she was failing right when she needed to be strong. Lucas found her in the kitchen at dawn, staring at the cold stove. His own face was tight with pain. Samuel is handling breakfast, he said. He is no cook, but he can manage eggs and coffee for one morning. You need to rest those hands. The men need you to heal. Let people help you, Evelyn. You have been taking care of everyone else. Let us take care of you for once. She had little choice. She let him lead her to a chair. They sat together in the quiet. "We should talk about last night," Lucas said after a while. "About what we said." Evelyn's heart jumped. Had he changed his mind? "If you want to take it back, I do not." He met her eyes, "Not even a little. But I want to make sure you do not. You were exhausted and running on adrenaline. A life with me would mean people talking. Some will say you manipulated me to get a rich husband. Others will call me a fool for marrying the help. Marjorie Collins will probably try to ruin us both. It would mean being tied to a man who is still grieving his first wife, a man with scars inside and out." "What you are describing sounds hard and complicated," she said, laying her bandaged hands over his. "It also sounds honest and real. Nothing like my first marriage, which was built on secrets and lies. I will take hard and honest over easy and false any day, even knowing it will cost you. Everything worthwhile costs something. Besides, you are not the only one bringing complications. I am a widow with debts and a scandalous past. I have nothing to offer except my work and my brute. That is everything." He lifted her hand and kissed her bandaged knuckles. "Your word is gold, and you are the strongest person I have ever met." "Then we are agreed. We move forward, but I would still like to wait before making any announcements. Let your hands heal. Let the dust settle from the fire." "How long are we talking? A month?" He smiled. "I have waited 5 years to feel this way again. I can wait another month to make it official." The month that followed tested them both. Evelyn's hands healed slowly, leaving scars across her palms. She fought through pain and frustration to get her skills back. Lucas worked beside her, helping with tasks she could not manage, never making her feel useless. Their relationship grew deeper. They spent evenings talking, learning about each other. Lucas told her about Caroline, his first wife. He spoke not of her death, but of their life together. In return, she told him about Thomas and the truth of her own past. That peace did not last long. News of the fire traveled fast, and ugly rumors followed right behind it. Folks in town began whispering that Evelyn had set the fire to make herself a hero. Or worse, that she and Lucas were carrying on and had staged the whole rescue. Samuel was the one who told her, his face tight with anger. "It is all lies, Mrs. Hart," he said. "Anyone with eyes can see you are a decent woman and the boss respects you. But people in town would rather believe a good story than the plain truth." "Let them talk," she said, though the gossip stung her deeply. "We know what really happened." "This kind of talk can do real damage," Samuel warned, "to the ranch, to the boss, and especially to a woman's good name." She knew he was right. The injustice of it was a bitter pill to swallow. Her hard work meant nothing against a vicious lie. "What is the plan?" she asked. "The boss aims to ride into town and face them down," Samuel told her. "It would surely help if you went with him. Show them you have nothing to hide." The idea of facing those whispers was terrifying. There was a growing spark between her and Lucas, and going to town together would be like pouring fuel on the fire. When she told Lucas about it, he just shook his head. "I will not put you through that." The fire was small, and they put it out quick, but the gossip it started in town spread like a wildfire. Rumors that Evelyn was a danger, that Lucas was a fool. "We'll face them together," he told her, his voice firm. "Let them say what they want about me, but you shouldn't have to hide for doing nothing wrong." Evelyn stood a little taller. "I've survived worse than small-town talk." That Saturday, they hitched up the wagon and rode into town, side by side. She wore her best dress, her chin held high. Whatever was coming, they were ready to meet it head-on, proving that love and courage are stronger than any rumor. Pulling the wagon into town, Evelyn felt 100 pairs of eyes on her. Folks just stopped and stared, their whispers following her like a shadow. Lucas helped her down, his hand a steady presence at her elbow as they walked right into the lion's den, the general store. The owner, Harold Atwood, looked up and his face went cold. "Mr. Hale, this is Mrs. Hart, my cook," Lucas said. "Mrs. Hart," Atwood said, his voice flat. "I've heard about you." "I'm sure you have," Evelyn said, meeting his gaze. "The question is, do you believe gossip, or do you make up your own mind about people?" That seemed to surprise him a bit. "I prefer to make up my own mind." "Good," she said. "Let's get this straight. I work for Mr. Lucas Hale. I cook for his crew, and I keep his house supplied. I do my job, and I do it right. Anything else you've heard is just plain mean-spirited gossip. With that, Evelyn turned her back on the whispers and got to her shopping. Now, Mr. Atwood, do you have any fresh flour? The last bit was just all right. For a second, Atwood just stared. Then a slow grin spread across his face. As a matter of fact, I do. Got a new shipment in yesterday? Better quality. The air cleared. As Evelyn went about her business, other folks watched from the corners of their eyes, but she paid them no mind. Lucas stood nearby, a silent wall of support. They were loading the wagon when Marjorie Collins stepped out of her fancy carriage, looking for all the world like she was spoiling for a fight. Well now, Lucas, fancy seeing you in town. Her eyes slid over to Evelyn like she was something stuck to her shoe. And you brought your cook. Ain't that sweet? Marjorie. Lucas's voice was low and steady, a clear warning. We're just finishing up. Oh, I'm sure you are. Marjorie's voice dripped with poison. Tell me, Lucas, have you told Mrs. Hart about all the other women? The ones you made feel special right before you tossed them aside? It was a bald-faced lie, and Evelyn knew it from the way Lucas went rigid. This was just pure cruelty, meant to plant a seed of doubt between them. That is enough. Evelyn stepped right between them before Lucas could even draw a breath. I do not know what you think you are doing with these lies, Mrs. Collins, but let me be clear. I am not scared of you, your money, or your nasty rumors. And I sure am not dumb enough to believe a woman who has been nothing but spiteful from the day we met. Marjorie's face turned beet red. How dare you? You are nothing but a desperate woman who latched onto the first man to show you any kindness. I am a widow who lost everything and built my life back up with my own two hands. You are a rich woman who is so miserable she has to tear down other people's happiness just to feel important. Evelyn's voice never wavered. Now, who do you reckon folks will respect more in the long run? A crowd had gathered, and you could feel them sizing up the two women. They saw Marjorie in her fine clothes spitting venom, and Evelyn in her simple dress standing tall with dignity. The tide was turning, right then and there. You will regret this, Marjorie hissed. Both of you, what are you gonna do? Lucas finally spoke, his voice cold as a winter morning. Ruin me? I have been through worse than your petty games, Marjorie. And Mrs. Hart has faced down real loss. Your threats are just noise. He turned to Evelyn, his eyes softening. We are done here. Let us go home. Home. That one word settled deep in her heart. Not just his place, but theirs. As they rode away, Evelyn saw Marjorie standing alone, her face twisted in fury. You were really something back there, Lucas said quietly as the town faded behind them. I have never seen anyone shut Marjorie down like that. She made it easy. Lies fall apart when you shine a light on them. Besides, I meant what I said. I have survived real trouble. Her words cannot hurt me. Still, you were fearless. She smiled a little. No, I was scared spitless. But I have learned that courage is just doing what needs to be done, even when you are afraid. You taught me that. Lucas reached over and gently took her scarred hand. We make a good team. Yeah, Evelyn agreed softly. We sure do. But their fight had consequences they did not see coming. The gossip in town quieted down, but Marjorie was not finished. She was just getting started. It turned out some folks still had a good head on their shoulders. They started questioning where those nasty rumors about Evelyn came from. Remembering Marjorie always was a sore loser. Soon the tide of gossip began to turn. The trouble wasn't gone, but it had quieted down enough for Evelyn to breathe again. Facing that mess together had forged something solid between her and Lucas. They had stood as one, proving to themselves that what they were building was stronger than any outside hate. A few weeks later, Lucas found Evelyn in the kitchen after a long day. The whole ranch was quiet, bathed in the gold of a setting winter sun. He looked at her with an expression that made her heart stand still. I know I said I would wait, he started, his voice low and steady. But I am more sure about this than anything in my life. Evelyn Hart, will you marry me? She had expected the question, but hearing it, seeing the hope in his eyes, still stole her breath. A single word came out, full of certainty. Yes, I will marry you because I love you, and building a life with you sounds like the grandest adventure of all. He crossed the room in a flash, pulling her into a joyful kiss. Then he took out a small box. Inside was a simple, beautiful gold band. "It is not much," he said. "It is perfect," she whispered, holding out her hand. The ring slid on as if it were made for her. "We will get married in the spring," she decided, "after the winter breaks. But first, Lucas, I have to pay off my husband's debts. I want to come to you free and clear, owing nothing to anyone." He started to argue, to offer his own money, but she put a finger to his lips. "Please," she said, "let me do this for myself." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, Evelyn, we will do it your way. But you know those debts were never truly yours to carry." "I know," she said, "but ending that chapter with my head held high, that is for me." He smiled and kissed her forehead. "You are a remarkable woman." They held each other in the quiet kitchen, a new future sealed between them. She had come to Stonefield Ranch with nothing but a skillet and 3 pennies, a broken woman looking for a way to survive. Now she had a home. She had a family. She had found a second life, built not on desperation, but on truth and respect. The announcement of their engagement was met with cheers from the ranch hands. Samuel, the foreman, clapped Lucas on the back and told him it was about time. Young Ethan, the orphan boy they had taken in, asked Evelyn a simple, heartfelt question. "Does this mean you are staying forever?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Evelyn knelt down to look him in the eye. "I am staying forever, Ethan. This is our home now." The boy threw his arms around her neck, a fierce and sudden hug that spoke volumes. But their joy was short-lived. Word of their engagement spread like wildfire, and it reached the one person who wished them nothing but ill, Marjorie Collins. 3 weeks after Lucas proposed, a letter arrived from the Territorial Bank. It was cold, formal, and signed by Marjorie. The letter was a declaration of war disguised in legal terms. Citing concerns about the ranch's stability, the bank was calling in all of Lucas's loans. He had 90 days to pay in full. Lucas read the letter, his face like stone. "This is her revenge," Evelyn said, her voice shaking with anger. "She cannot do this." "Oh, she can," Lucas replied, the muscle in his jaw tight. "It is all legal. She found a loophole and she is using it to try and ruin me. To raise that kind of money in 90 days, I would have to sell off half the ranch. Everything I have spent 15 years building would be cut down to almost nothing." He stood and looked out the window at the land he loved, the land he was about to lose. But as Evelyn watched him, she did not see a man defeated. She saw the same fighter who had built this ranch from scratch, the same man who had faced down gossip and threats for her sake. Marjorie had started a war, but Evelyn knew right then and there that she and Lucas were going to fight back. They had built something real out of the ashes of their pasts, and they would not let anyone tear it down without one heck of a fight. The battle for Stonefield Ranch had just begun. A few days later, the real trouble hit. The bank called in Lucas's loan. They wanted every last cent back in 90 days. It was an impossible demand. "She is trying to ruin me," Lucas said, his voice tight with anger. "She knows she cannot destroy me outright, but she can hurt me so bad it would take years to get back on my feet." Evelyn's mind raced. They could not get another loan, and cattle prices were too low to sell the herd. "My savings," she said suddenly, "the money I have been putting aside." Lucas shook his head. "No, Evelyn, that is for your new start." "How much is it?" she insisted. "Compared to what you need?" "It is a drop in the bucket," he admitted. "Maybe 5%. But it is a start," she argued. "I will not take your money. You work too hard for it. That money is your freedom. And this ranch is your life's work. It is everything you have built. What happens to the 23 men who work for you if she wins? What happens to us?" She stood beside him, taking his hand. "We are partners, Lucas. Partners carry the weight together. It is not fair to you. Life is not fair. We both know that. But we choose how we fight back. And I choose to fight. Paying off my late husband's debts was about closing a chapter. Maybe this is how it is supposed to end, by using that money to save something that truly matters." He turned to her, his eyes searching hers. "Are you sure? Because if we do this, there is no turning back. And if we still lose everything, then we will build it all back again." She said, her voice steady as a rock. "Together, you gave me a second chance. Now it is my turn. That is what love is it not? choosing each other when it is hard. He pulled her into a fierce hug. I do not deserve you. Yes, you do. Now, she said, pulling back with a look of pure steel, let us figure out how to save this ranch. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Lucas laid the whole ugly truth out for his men. To their shock, every single one of them offered to take less pay to help out. One old-timer spoke up, his voice rough with emotion. Boss, you took me in when no one else would. I am not going anywhere. Another nodded. You gave my brother an honest job when he was in trouble. We pay our debts around here. Their loyalty was humbling. This was not just a ranch. It was a family bound by something stronger than a paycheck. And it was a family worth fighting for. Evelyn, for her part, went to war on the household budget, finding ways to save every penny. They were in this together, and they would not waste a single day. Evelyn took charge of the ranch finances, cutting waste like a seasoned rancher. Then she rode into town and walked straight into the bank to face Marjorie Collins. She didn't wait to be invited, just sat herself down across the big desk from Marjorie. I'm here to make you an offer, Evelyn started, her voice steady. You want to hurt Lucas because he didn't choose you. This is personal, not business, and we both know it. So let's stop pretending and talk turkey about what it's going to take to make this right. Destroying Lucas's ranch will only make you look petty, Evelyn said, leaning in. Is that really the reputation you want? Lucas and I are getting married this spring. Nothing you do is going to change that. So you can be the smart businesswoman who helped out during a tough time, or the scorned woman who acted out of spite. She slid an envelope across the desk. Here's our proposal. Lucas will pay back 40% of the loans right now. We restructure the rest over 3 years. You come out of this looking generous and smart, and you keep a good relationship with the biggest rancher in these parts. Marjorie studied the proposal. Evelyn had spent 3 long days on the numbers, scraping together every last penny they had. It was a painful stretch, but it would work. This leaves you with no room for error, Marjorie finally said, looking up. One bad season and you're done. That's our risk to take, Evelyn replied. Marjorie stared at her for a long moment. Then a real smile touched her lips. You're tougher than you look. I can see why Lucas chose you, she said, tapping the papers. You've got spine. It was a high-stakes showdown, a desperate widow against a powerful woman holding her future in a manicured hand. But Evelyn didn't just fight, she fought smart. Her counteroffer was so solid, so well-reasoned, it stopped Marjorie cold. The woman blinked, then offered something astonishing. Even better terms. You proved you are a worthy partner for Lucas, Marjorie admitted, extending a hand. I misjudged you. Let this be my apology. In that handshake, a rivalry died and a grudging respect was born. This story proves that true strength is not about revenge, but about building something better, and that sometimes your greatest enemy can become an unexpected ally. If you have ever felt like the underdog, this story is for you. Evelyn raced back to the ranch, the signed papers feeling like a miracle in her hand. She found Lucas in the barn. He saw her face and knew instantly. She agreed, Evelyn said, her voice shaking with joy. The ranch is safe. The strength seemed to drain right out of him, and he sat down hard on a bale of hay, burying his face in his scarred hands. When he looked up, the relief in his eyes was overwhelming. You saved everything, he whispered, holding her hand tight. No, she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. We saved it. And I learned something. I thought paying off my late husband's debts was closure. But I was wrong. Building a future with you right here, that is real closure. That is freedom. Life on the ranch felt lighter after that. With their future secure, Evelyn and Lucas focused on planning their wedding. It would be a simple ceremony in early April, when the first spring flowers pushed through the Texas soil. The ranch hands built them a beautiful arbor, and young Ethan, now a confident and hardworking young man, appointed himself the unofficial wedding planner. He had truly found a family and a home. One evening, Lucas wrapped his arms around Evelyn. You would make a wonderful mother, he said quietly. She smiled, feeling a peace she had not known in years. Let us get married first, she answered. Then we will see what life brings. Their wedding day arrived with warm sunshine. Friends and neighbors gathered, folks who had seen Evelyn's courage and respected her for it. Then, to everyone's shock, Marjorie appeared. She walked straight to Lucas and handed him an envelope. "A wedding gift," she said simply. Inside was the paid receipt for their entire restructured loan, every single penny cleared in full. "I have been promoted," Marjorie explained with a genuine smile. "I can afford the generosity. Be happy. You both have earned it." She slipped away before they could even protest, leaving them speechless. Standing under the arbor, Lucas and Evelyn exchanged vows they had written themselves. They promised honesty, support, and a lifetime of building their dreams together. When the minister pronounced them married, Lucas kissed her with a tenderness that brought happy tears to her eyes. The crowd cheered, the ranch hands stomped their approval, and young Ethan grinned wider than the Texas sky. The celebration was full of laughter and joy, a testament to their hard-won peace. Surrounded by the smell of hay and leather, Evelyn and Lucas sat together hand in hand. They had faced the storm and come out the other side, not just as survivors, but as partners. They had fought for what mattered and won, proving that the best foundations are not built on money, but on respect, courage, and a love strong enough to weather any hardship. The celebration was full of good food and even better folks. Evelyn shared a dance with Samuel, Harold Atwood, and nearly every hand on the ranch who wanted a turn with the bride. Lucas watched from the side, a quiet peace on his scarred face. She finally pulled him onto the floor, and he grumbled about having 2 left feet. As they swayed, she told him, "You saved me, giving me a chance when I had nothing." He shook his head gently. "You saved yourself, Evelyn. Then you turned right around and saved me from the grief I was stuck in. I reckon we're even." She smiled up at him. "No, we're partners. That's a sight better than even." The Texas sun set in a blaze of glory, painting the ranch in impossible colors. As the last of the guests headed home, they stood together looking out at the land that was truly theirs. "Any regrets?" Lucas asked. She thought about the long road that brought her here, the day she lost everything. The walk down that dusty road with just a skillet and 3 cents. She remembered standing on his porch, offering the only thing she had left, her will to work. The slow months of earning trust and finding a love she never expected. The fire that tested them and the hardship they overcame together. It all led to this moment, beside a good man on land they fought for, with people who became their family. "Not a single one," she said with certainty. "This is exactly where I belong." "Good," Ashvin grinned, "because I plan on keeping you for the next 50 years. "Only 50? I was hoping for longer." He laughed and pulled her close. "Then however long we get." In the quiet dark, they stood as 2 people life had tried to break. 2 souls who had chosen grit over comfort and partnership over pride. They knew second chances were not something you find. They were something you build, day by day, from the ashes of what was lost. In the spring, Evelyn planted a garden where the fire had been. She made sure something was always in bloom, a constant splash of color and life. That spot became her favorite place on the ranch. It was a living reminder that ruin is not the end of the story. With enough care and stubbornness, beautiful things can grow from wreckage. Lucas would find her there in the quiet mornings, watching the sunrise. He would sit beside her, their shoulders touching, no words needed between them. Everything important had already been said and proven. The ranch prospered under their care. Evelyn's smart management of supplies and her good cooking kept morale high. This freed Lucas to grow the business. In just 2 years, Stonefield Ranch was the top outfit in the territory. It was known for its fine cattle and for treating its workers right. Ethan grew into a fine young man and became foreman after Samuel retired. Over the years, other folks down on their luck found their way to the ranch. It earned a name as a place where a person could get a fresh start if they were willing to work for it. Evelyn fed them all, her kitchen becoming the heart of a sprawling family. Sometimes surrounded by the smell of good food and the sound of laughter, she would think of the woman she used to be. That desperate person on the road would not even recognize the strong, loved woman she was now. The change was still a wonder to her. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas would ask when he saw that faraway look in her eyes. "Just how long the road was to get here," she would answer, "and how thankful I am that I kept on walking." "Well, I am thankful too. I cannot imagine this life without you." And that, Evelyn knew, was the real miracle. Not just that she had survived, but that she had found where she belonged. She had found a love that asked for nothing but for her to be herself, iron, skillet, and all. She came to Stonefield Ranch with nothing. She knew one day she would leave it, having built a different kind of empire, one made of kindness and second chances. Around here, a person's worth is not measured in land or cattle. It is measured in the lives you touch and the love you give. The woman who came here with nothing but desperation in her eyes was right about one thing. She could cook. But Lord, she could do so much more. With true grit, she survived and built a new life from the ashes of her old one. The home she carved out with Lucas burns brighter than anything she lost. That kind of happiness is worth more than any fortune. She walked through fire and faced down all the ugly talk and her own deepest fears. She bet it all on her own two hands in a spirit that would not break. And in the end, she won more than she ever dreamed. Her truth was simple. She offered what little she had, worked harder than anyone thought possible, and loved fiercely when love finally found her. She simply refused to let other people decide her worth. The sun rose high over Stonefield Ranch, painting the big sky in shades of gold. From her kitchen, Evelyn watched Lucas head for the barn and heard Ethan calling out to the morning crew. She could smell the good earth warming in the sunshine. This was her home. This was her family. This was her future. And it was more than enough. It was everything.